into the LGBT world. Get it all in one package. Entertainment, music, gossip, an exclusive interview. Only on No Strings with Mike Damon.
Hi, welcome again to No Strings. I am Mike Damon and I'm super excited to have you again on another episode of No Strings. No Strings is Nigeria's first LGBT podcast. Sometimes in No Strings I get to talk alone, sometimes I get to talk with someone, and this is one of those episodes where I get to talk with someone. When I first did an episode on the topic, are you a man or a woman, I wasn't actually expecting anyone to debut with an answer, but I'll be talking to them and they're going to shock us, of course, with their responses on the subject, and of course at the same time tell us so much about what it really means to be a cisgender. I know some of us do not know, the meaning of that word, but I can assure you that after this episode, you're sure going to know everything there is to know. But before we take that journey into that person's life, I'm going to do, the ritual thing where I take a short break and then finally come back again to No Strings. I'll be back shortly. Stay on No Strings.
Truth be told, with no strings attached, listen to the actual voices of members of the Nigerian LGBT community. Only on No Strings with Mike Damon. Visit www.nostringspodcast.wordpress.com. You're listening to No Strings.
Hi, welcome back to No Strings in. I am Mike Damon. No Strings, of course, is Nigeria's first LGBT podcast. If you notice carefully, you would have observed that I use the word they and them. I did that on purpose, and you'll find out why pretty soon. For this week, I'm going to be talking to Seyi Adebanjo, formerly Seyi Adebanjo, the queer, gender non-conforming Nigerian. Seyi raises awareness through digital video in multimedia photography, and also has a strong relationship with art, media, imagination, ritual, and politics. Now, talking about ritual, let's do another ritual thing, of course, where we officially welcome wonderful people to No Strings. Seyi, you're so welcome to No Strings, Nigeria's first LGBT podcast. I'm so excited to have you on. We are so excited to have you. I think that does it better. Seyi, you're so welcome to No Strings. So, Seyi, my listeners would like to meet you now. Can you briefly tell us a little about you?
Thank you, Mike, for having me. To say a little bit about who I am, I'm a queer, gender non-conforming Nigerian MFA artist.
Okay.
I'm a media artist who raises awareness around social justice issues through digital video, multimedia photography, and writings.
Okay.
What I love about my work is that it's the intersection of art, media, imagination, ritual, and politics. And I've been able to just use my tool as a leverage in terms of the different issues that I'm excited about, looking at, talking about bridging spirituality and social justice, having conversations about queer people of color, queer and transgender non-conforming folks of color, looking at such issues as immigration, and talking about how do we create a world where there's peace and ending violence against people, and been able to use my documentaries and photography to bring that awareness not just in New York City but also on a national, and working to make it more of an international level. And who I am is somebody who just really believes art is a great tool for social justice, and without it we won't be able to be liberated.
So much there, but I'm sure that's cleared up. So, Seyi, how do you identify now? Is it as a male or female? Because I know some of us can or could really be curious. So please tell us.
I identify as gender non-conforming, so meaning that I use gender-neutral pronouns such as they, them, or my name. I'm somebody who say that I am in between worlds, I'm in between genders, and I'm also in between cultures. And as somebody who stands within the binaries of gender, it's a different space to navigate, and which can be difficult because a lot of people are so used to this really gender binary that's really oppressive and dangerous, that you have to either be a cisgender woman or a cisgender man, and not everybody identifies that way in the world because there's lots of other genders that exist simultaneously. And so I'm one of the people who really claims that space and talks about and embodies how to be in the space of in between.
Wow. Okay. So how do people address you publicly? And how do you document yourself, just in case you are given a piece of document to feel that doesn't have trans or anything of that nature, indicated on it? How do you manage that? Please tell us.
That has been a challenge, and I've seen as, it's always up to where people are at, It always surprises me, like after I tell people I identify as gender non-conforming and just call me by my name or they or them, that they start to misgender me and call me she. That always baffles me because I'm like, nowhere did I tell you that that's how I identify. And
true.
As somebody who's more masculine presenting and has facial hair, that people just automatically assume because my voice isn't deep or as I've gotten smaller and not as muscular as I've been in the past, people just always want to identify me as she. And so that always perplexes me because it's a way for them to just pigeonhole me and want to be able to deal with me and want to be able to put me down and just subject me to whatever their fantasies are, ideologies of who I should be, because I'm not taking up a lot of space as somebody in this world.
So true.
And also as a way to just oppress me and take the, my power away from me. So that's always something that is challenging when I just meet people and this is our first experience with each other and they want to go to she, and I'm just like, nowhere in that conversation did I say that. And so that has been challenging. It's also interesting to hear when people identify me as he. I'm like, I'm in more a place to deal with that versus getting gendered the other way and living in the world that way. But my preference is just to have people use gender neutral pronouns and talking to me and just really looking at how do we embody gender in a way that's different in our society, because a lot of times we have these theoretical conversations about gender, and then when it comes to talking about people describing this world, people go back to what's comfortable and what's familiar, which is like gendering people in a way that's within the binaries. And I think once our society is able to get through gender and gender expression and able to be comfortable with how people show up in the different representations of gender, where we can have a masculinity that honors femininity, where we can have a femininity that also honors masculinity, and everyone just be okay in their bodies and however people choose to say and identify who they are. Once we're able to be comfortable with that in our society, we'll be in a much better place. And since gender is still a very dangerous territory and if people don't know who you are and how to classify you, it makes it really dangerous because they have to know. And it drives a whole lot of people to violence and to doing things that
shouldn't do.
Really unsafe. Not just in terms of like spiritually, emotionally, and also physically. So that's one of the things that becomes difficult depending where I go and how people want to gender me and treat me, and that misgendering and that violence will dictate how I'm going to be, and if I'm going to be able to be safe in that moment, or if I'm going to have to be quiet and be okay if I get misgendered, or have to find safety in a backup plan. So that can be a difficult issue to address a lot of times. Just dealing with people. And in terms of how my identifications are, it varies. I'm one of those folks who have different gender markers depending on different IDs. Some of my gender markers are still say female, some say male and whatnot, and just wanted to be able to change things as I could afford it, and then also looking at that I don't need to change everything right away in terms of someone who's gender non-conforming and whose spirit is transcendent gender. So that can be a difficult issue to tackle with because it's expensive. Passports, IDs, and all of that, and there's lots of different state agencies that want different requirements in order to be able to change the gender marker. And I wish we could just, be in a society that could accept us for who we are. However, that is not always the case.
Wow, so true there. And thank you so much for trying to educate us as well. Now, when did you start noticing that you were different from the person outside? And how did you come to that conclusion that you have someone else, someone there within? Tell us, please.
Different? I've always been different. I've always identified, I've always been more masculine presenting, and in terms of my energies. However, my masculinity has never been about it being like really oppressive towards anyone or about being really hard. I've always been one of those people who expresses myself, and I wear suits or ties or whatnot, and I'm more masculine identifying. But however, there's also been fluidity and a balance in terms of my spirit, and also being able to identify with the feminine that's within. But since a youngin', I've always been more, I guess for lack of a better term, like looked like a tomboy. And you know how it is in Nigeria, it's never been a thing to cut somebody's hair short.
Yeah,
and so that was never a thing. So it was always challenging, like when I moved to the U.S. to get misgendered, or people to, as a child, call me a boy, and then as an adult, call me a girl, and go back and forth. So that's always been something that's been a little crazy to deal with, depending on what people's personal experiences are and what they want to label me in that moment. But I've always noticed that I was different, and first came out as as queer, and then later now in life coming out as somebody who's gender non-conforming, which is under the trans umbrella.
Okay, so can you tell us about your transition? How was it like? Do you have any set requirements, or maybe things that you first did that helped you during the process to fully transition into the person that you have become? Please tell us.
I think transition, it looks different for everyone. And, people always like to talk about how it's a journey, and I don't think you ever finish transitioning. And I think everyone's in the transition in one way or another. For some folks, it's around their gender. And thinking for me in terms of my gender transition, I kind of stutter around that question, because for me, I've identified as gender non-conforming for a while, and then I changed my name. When did I change my name? In terms of maybe 2010 or earlier, changed it to Seyi. One of the great things about being Yoruba is you have a bunch of names. And I had Seyi, I thought was a great name for where I was going in this period in my life. And so I changed my name, and then I changed it legally on my documents to have it be my first name. And then I started a medical transition, because not everyone chooses to transition medically and whatnot. And I started using testosterone and injecting that. And so that was interesting, and still is an interesting experience of just how my body adapted to that, and my spirit and stuff. And it was, it was good to see of just starting to look more physically in terms of the facial hair that I always wish I had, and having that come out presently. So that was exciting, but it took a while to grow the little facial hair that I have. And so that started being a thing, and just was really more active in terms of going to the gym, and just really bulked up at the beginning of my transition medically with testosterone. And where I'm at now in terms of being on T is that they've reduced the dosage, just because it can be hard on your liver. And so I've lost some of those muscles, and also because I haven't been to the gym as much. But I'm looking forward to just bulking up a little bit more, and I'm glad that I've been on this journey in terms of taking testosterone, and it is something that I struggled with at the beginning of if this was right for me, how my spirit would feel, and how I would be able to walk in the world, and if it would